Welcome back to She's Constructing It, where we look at finishing our walls. So before we get too much into drywall, I really want to take a moment here and mention that there are lots of other type of wall finishings and why you might want to use them. Particularly if you're looking at ceilings, which have a lot of flex and are inclined to crack your drywall and can be difficult to do. Redwood, plywood, and other boards are a really nice way to finish ceilings. In addition, on walls, there is lots of wood paneling that you can both paint to represent drywall or use in other manners so that your walls are more resistant to flexing, cracking, and breaking. And there might be places where you need to put in something like, say, this galvanized metal roofing to make your walls more heat resistant, or use backer board and tile to make the walls, in the case in this greenhouse, more water resistant. That being said, drywall is incredibly cheap and it is fun to work with, and you would be able to do all of your own work on drywall. And when it doesn't turn out how you like it, you're just going to do a little more. And then you're going to sand it off and you're going to do a little more. And you're going to sand it off and do a little more. But there are some tricks to making your drywall more successful. And we'll try and go through some of those now. So if you've decided to hang drywall, let's take a look at a couple things you want to make sure. One, all of your plumbing and electrical and utilities are run. You've double checked them. They've been inspected if you have a building inspector. And you have the approval or someone has double checked them and you're ready to close everything in. Don't forget blocking at this point. If you're going to hang cabinets and other things, this is an important time to put that stuff in. Although you can do it later, it's just a lot more work. All right, so let's take a look at a basic wall. One of the things about a basic wall, if it has a window or a door in it, anywhere that it's going to get super loaded, you want to make sure to try not to break your sheets right at that loading point, because drywall is very unforgiving for shifting in your building. So that's going to be a really easy place for things to crack. If I were putting drywall across the top of this window, I would try and run my sheet to the middle of that cripple so that my sheet break is not right at remember we have a king stud or a queen stud, and the jack underneath my window. I want to make sure to get it past that loading point and make that joint as stable as I can. So in that case, I would maybe have two upper sheets up there that both don't end right where the window loads. I also want then to look at the bottom in a similar fashion because I might get shifting on the bottom. So maybe on the left-hand side of my wall, I would look at installing an L going to the bottom of my windowsill and then the middle cripple there. Conversely, from the middle cripple over to the far king stud or queen stud, I might consider using a scrap there, even though I am breaking the joint right at the edge there with the jack stud, because maybe the electrical box on the right-hand side of that, the little blue square, maybe that's a super complicated cut and I don't want to waste a whole sheet, or maybe I have a little scrap. So the more drywall you do, the more you'll learn places that you can take risks. And there are, of course, wonderful books and wonderful videos that will help you make these decisions when you're doing drywall. You can see here how the better your plans for your building, the less you'll have to fight your building when you get to hanging drywall or putting wall sheathing on. So the more details you have drawn out and thought of on the inside and the outside, the less problems you're going to have. I'd like to point out that ideally drywall stops a little bit off the finished floor so it doesn't have a wicking action. And if you get water on your floor, and you can add a baseboard to cover that space. A note of warning here, especially if you're in a remodel. Drywall cannot solve your structural problems in your building. If you have major structural problems, heaving or shifting, you will probably have cracks in your drywall, and this is time to look at a more creative solution like crown molding or some beautiful wood trim. You can try. There's nothing to be lost by giving it a shot, but if it keeps re-cracking, you're going to have to go to something else or solve the underlying structural issue. In addition, wood swells, wood shrinks. So if you have a building that's going to be winterized, if it goes from being very, very cold to very, very warm, this can blow up even really well executed drywall seams. The same if your wood gets super wet in a humid climate and then it really, really dries out. You might get cracking in your drywall. This is not a personal failing. This is just how wood works. So drywall comes in different thicknesses. This is 1/2 inch drywall, depending on where you are. You will need to know what type of drywall is required if you have a building inspector. In some places, you would need 5/8 inch drywall on your ceiling for fire code. This is 1/2 inch. This is what we're using on the walls. The stuff that I'm kneeling on that is blue, this is a mold resistant drywall that I'm putting in the bathroom. This is never certified for showers in most places. I actually have backer board in my shower, a cement board. Or I could have done a Curdy board, which is this very cool foam board with a tile membrane. This will not be in my shower, but this is going to be in the toilet area. So it resists molding. It's more moisture resistant. This is not moisture resistant. This stuff will mold. So my blue board or green board, and then just my regular drywall. When I'm doing drywall, couple things you want to know about drywall. Do not be too precise on your cutting. If you cut it too tight and you try and press it in, it pretty much always does that and breaks on you. So really try and give yourself a little bit of room to fit things in. Do not press it in too hard. It will explode on you. When I'm scoring drywall, a couple things that I really need a tape, I really need a utility knife, and I need something to measure straight with. So that can be a level. In this case, I have an 8-foot level for going across my full sheets. This is a heavy adjustable T-square or a drywall square. These are very cool in that they're very cool for all sorts of things, but for drywall, they stay square on my edges. I always make 2 marks on anything long to make sure it's actually square. But when I know my measurement, I can put a line there. I can take my knife, my pretend measurement here. I've got my gloves. I score my drywall firmly a couple of times. My knife is actually, my blade's getting dull, so I'm going to have to score a couple more times. Then I take my drywall and I very firmly snap it. See, it's broken, but the paper is still attached. So this is the stage at which, turn it to face camera, you have to slit the back of the paper. If you don't, you will rip this. This is part of what holds your drywall together. So you want to make sure to cut that all the way through. Okay. Other cool tools for drywall. When I'm cutting out electrical boxes, especially out of the middle of the sheet, these little punch saws, they have a sharp blade on the end, and it's a saw for sawing through drywall. These are great, and they're not very expensive. So this is a good tool. You can see I just work it into my sheet, and then I can cut out my electrical box that way. My pretend electrical box here. Okay, again, make sure your paper's gone through all the way on the back when you're cutting out electrical boxes. The multi-tool works great for this. Remember, with the multi-tool, I would normally be wearing ears. Okay, so that makes a very nice clean cut. I use old metal blades or old wood blades. It's a great way to use them up. They do make drywall blades as well. I just happen to find it's a great way to encourage me to go use my old blades that aren't really working on metal or wood well. Okay, so there's my mini electrical box. Drywall shaves very easily with a knife if I need just a little bit more. So when your box is too small. Also, when you end up with, you can see how this broke very uncleanly, partly because I didn't score my paper. Partly what happens. They make these cool Sureform shavers or drywall shavers. Cleans up your edge real nice. There you go. Drywall also has, and it's very hard for you to see, it has a tapered edge and a butt edge. Anywhere I can put 2 tapered edges together, when I go to, so that it's just a little bit thinner there. That means anytime I go to tape, especially long seams, this makes it much easier to hide my drywall tape. So if I am doing a building like this is a tapered edge here, I would put my two tapered edges together here so I'd have a long seam I could tape and then put mud over, and this whole seam will vanish so much easier. Butt seams, where I have two pieces of drywall untapered, are harder to make disappear. So trying to strategically decide which is going to be my tapered seam. Also, if I have anywhere that I need a finished edge, that it might be butting up against something that I just want to paint this edge, trying to prioritize my finished edge versus my unfinished edge on drywall. Okay, that's tools. On this sheet, I'm about to score it along this level, this big long seam, and then I have to kind of fight this big long sheet, break it, cut the paper on the back side, and then I have a bunch more cuts to make, and then I can install my blue board in my bathroom with some drywall screws. Yeah, that is a quick summary of drywall. Other tools of note: if you're installing drywall on a ceiling, this is time to go to your rental center and ask for a drywall jack. These are a must-have for saving your back. So I have a sheet here that I have cut and tested my fit. I also have a box back here. So this is, again, my power's off. This is a blind mark magnet locator. They're very, very cool. They kind of self-center. So what you do, and they're very strong, is it's got these little prong things that stick into your outlet that are on springs. You center it in your outlet. You make sure the arrow is facing up. Then I'm going to put my drywall sheet in at whatever height I want it. Get it set. And then part of how I can find it, as I don't drop things, find my box, make sure your arrow is facing up. Go around. Oh, there it is. Move it around a little bit. There's my box. The outlet boxes that have adjustable screws are way better for this because they sit all the way flush. My outlet box is out 1/2 inch. So, because I bought the less expensive outlet boxes for this project, and so it's sitting out 1/2 inch, so my whole sheet is out 1/2 inch. So it's a little bit less stable, but I will double check it by measuring before I cut this.